How you doing, J-Box? Hey, listen, this is super, super, super exciting. I love that we have two service J-Box right now. This is huge for the church. Hey, and we've got even somebody trying to come in right now. So, just super cool stuff. I love that you guys are here, and I have a big question for you. Are you ready? Do you deal with it or leave it alone? And it's rhetorical, which means you can't really answer it yet. So, do you deal with it or do you leave it alone? If you brought a Bible with you to J-Box, would you go to the book of Joshua in the Bible? And Joshua is the greatest book in the Bible, just because when you say Joshua, it's my name. And that's the greatest part of it. So, Joshua is about a guy named, guess. Somebody said Matthew, and I love it. Joshua. It's a guy named Joshua, and he was a general for the nation of Israel. And so he would lead their armies into fighting. You might know him from a story about Joshua fighting the battle of Jericho. Raise your hand if you've heard that before. Joshua in the battle of Jericho. Okay, a lot of you have heard about that. Joshua at Jericho was awesome. That battle is amazing. You saw God's power in a crazy way. Like Jericho was this city that had these giant walls that nobody could beat, nobody could destroy them. And for all intents and purposes, this looked like it would be a big L for Israel. But when they went to fight against Jericho, God intervened and he knocked the walls down by his own power, and Israel was able to win. And Israel knew immediately, God is on our side. Like God's going to help us. The whole reason that Israel is even at war right now is because God has told them, I need you to take this territory. I need you to take this land. And so they had won by a miracle at Jericho. How many of you you know that after you have like a great victory, after you have something super awesome, you feel better about yourself, right? Like when you get an A on a test, the rest of your day you walk around. You just feel good, right? When somebody says, well, maybe it depends. Sometimes when somebody says, you look nice, I understand that this is also middle school. So sometimes somebody's like, you look nice, and you're like, that's freaky, all right? So, but sometimes when somebody compliments you, you're like, oh, that's so sweet, thank you so much, right? And you just walk better. When you win a game, you feel better, right? And you just feel good. You're like, yes, this is amazing. Israel has just won, and they feel good. And so they pick the next city that they want to attack. And it's a city called Ai. Now, here's the deal. Wait. Yeah. Wait. It's spelled A-I. So we have two choices. I can either pronounce it the right way, which is I, or I can pronounce it like artificial intelligence and say AI. Which would you prefer? AI. All right, here we go. AI. So here's the deal. AI, do you know what it means? AI literally means the ruins. This is a picture of it today. Now, it looks like ruins now. But this was the name, Ai was the name that it was given when it was a city, right? How bad does a city have to look to be called the ruins when it's at its best? Now here's the deal. Ai is not an impressive space. Look how tiny that is. Like most of you have houses that big. No, me neither. Okay, so here's the deal. It's a pretty small area. In fact, most people believe that it was just like a place that it was like a snowbird location, right? It was just a place where people would go half of the year and they would harvest some crops and then they would leave. And so Ai does not have a scary army, does not have a strong city, does not look like it should. I mean, like, Israel is convinced they're going to sneeze and they're going to be able to break in, right? Like, I mean, it's looking weak. It's the ruins. It's run down. And so here is what Israel says in Joshua chapter 7, verse 3. Joshua had sent out spies, and it says this: when they returned, they told Joshua, there is no need for all of us to go up there. It won't take more than 2,000 or 3,000 men to attack Ai, since there are so few of them. Don't make all our people struggle to go up there. They're so confident. They're like, listen, this little city, it's a joke. It's so small, it's so tiny, we don't even have to worry about it. In fact, let's not even send everybody. Like that's like on your team when you're playing sports and you have a team that's so bad that you're playing against. You're like, let's put our worst players on the field. Let's put the guy who's made 0 points all year. Let's put him out there. He's going to kill it, right? That's how confident Israel is. And they send 3,000 men to go fight. And when the men get there, they go to attack Ai. And Ai whoops them. In fact, they beat them so bad that the Israelites go running away in a retreat. And while they're retreating, even more Israelites get killed. I mean, it's embarrassing. They left, the men of Ai left their walls and still beat them up. That's how bad this is. And Israel gets back to the camp, and they are freaked out. It says, the Bible translates it, and it says their hearts were like puddles of water. You ever just felt like so defeated that you're like, oh my gosh. Like I can't even hold my courage left. Like it's just a puddle. And it says everybody in Israel was just like, they're defeated. They're like, oh my goodness, has God abandoned us? In fact, Joshua, he goes and he cries out to God and he said, God, what's wrong? I thought you were on our side. I thought you were going to help us. I thought you were going to win a victory with us and for us. What happened here? But if you read the book of Joshua, it actually tells us that something bad was going to happen before they did. Nobody knew this but God, but in verse 1, it says this, that there was a problem that happened at Jericho. Verse 1, Israel violated the instructions about the things set apart for the Lord. There was a man named Achan who had stolen some of the dedicated things, so the Lord was very angry with the Israelites. Here's what happens. You have one guy sin. One guy does a bad thing, and he knew it was bad. He went into Jericho. They were not supposed to take anything, and he stole. He stole gold and silver, and it says a Babylonian robe, which for the Bible to mention it had to be a really good-looking robe, okay? I mean, like, I've never seen a robe that I've been like, pay a lot of money for. I would die for that robe. You know, like I've never seen a robe that really compelled me that way. But like for some reason, that robe was like, oh, that's a good robe. And the money, the gold and silver, is like $40,000 worth of money, right? And he took it, he stole it, he brought it back to his house, and he sinned. And so God was bothered, was angry by the sin that they had committed. This one man's sin. Isn't that interesting? And so Joshua cries out and he's like, God, what happened? I thought you were with us in this. In verse 10 it says, but the Lord said to Joshua, get up. Why are you lying on your face? Israel has sinned and broken my covenant. They've stolen some of the things that I commanded must be set apart for me. And they've not only stolen them, but have lied about it and hidden the things among their own belongings. So this next part is amazing. God says, get everybody together tomorrow. And I'm going to whittle down, I'm going to refine, I'm going to find out who did this. And so the next day, they get the nation of Israel, and all the people are broken into 12 tribes. And they pray, and they go, is it this tribe? God says, no. This tribe, no. This tribe, no. This tribe, no. They get to Judah, and they're like, the tribe of Judah? And can somebody grab the door? They get to the tribe of Judah, and in the tribe of Judah, they're like, it's this tribe. And then they look at the clan, and there's a bunch of clans inside the tribe of Judah, and they're like, is it this clan, or this clan, or this clan? No, it's this clan. God says it's this one. And then they take the clan and they get all the families, and they're like, all right, is it this family, or this family? And they get down. And can you imagine if you are Achan and you're watching like thousands of people, God say, nope, nope, and it keeps going, my tribe, my clan, my family, and then it gets right down to Achan himself. And Joshua goes, buddy, what's going on? And Achan goes, I've sinned. I have done something wrong. I stole, and I hid it, and I lied about it, and it's in my tent right now. And if you were to go look, you would find it. And what's interesting is that the nation of Israel punishes Achan, and they punish his family for lying and stealing. And then when the nation of Israel goes to fight Ai, right after that, God is with them and they win. And it's really interesting because the only difference, Israel had the same group of guys, it had the same army. The thing that changed was the presence of sin. And the question this morning is, do we deal with it or do we leave it alone? I love history, and so who likes history? Who likes history? I love history. So there was this in World War II. They were trying to find different ways to help the war effort against the Axis, the Nazis, and so there was all these companies making all kinds of things trying to help. And there was a company that made something called C8, which was just a chemical that came to be super useful in the war because you could spray it on stuff and it would keep moisture away. It would keep water away so things wouldn't rust. So you could spray it on tanks and on weapons and on planes and all kinds of stuff to keep it from rusting. And they were like, this is amazing. And so they sold a ton of it to the military during World War II. But World War II ended, and all these companies were like, well, we have this really awesome chemical C8. We can't really put it on tanks anymore because we don't need as many tanks and we don't need as many guns or planes. So what can we do with it? And so they started looking around everywhere, like, what can we do with C8? And they started putting it on stuff, and everything they put it on, it would keep water away. And so they were like, what if we put it on pans? And that way you put it on the pans and then your food doesn't stick to it and it can slide around. And then we could put it on carpets, and so the carpets don't get stains. And we could put it on ironing boards so that the stuff doesn't get stuck in there. And so they rebranded C8 as Teflon. And Teflon, throw up that picture real quick. Teflon was everywhere. Hey, can we grab the door real quick? So Teflon was everywhere. This is like a real ad from the 1950s, right? Where they were like, hey, listen, you could put Teflon on anything. And so as they put Teflon on stuff, they were making an unbelievable amount of money. I think at one point in time, one company who was making Teflon made about $95 million a day. Now here's what's amazing about this, is that it was everywhere. This was awesome. Everybody loved it. But immediately, there was a problem. Because as the workers who were on the assembly line in the factory making Teflon were exposed to it, they started to get really sick. In fact, they started to notice that some of them were developing cancers and some of these other things. And so they're like, well, let's see what kind of effect it has. So they started running tests on animals with Teflon. And what they found was every animal that they tested it on got sick. And they said, well, maybe it doesn't affect humans. So here's what they did. They started testing it by giving some of their employees cigarettes, Some of the cigarettes they would put Teflon in, and they would keep track of who they gave Teflon cigarettes to. And the ones who had those cigarettes and smoked them would end up in the hospital the very same day. And so they knew immediately, this is not good. But they were making so much money that they decided, hey, let's not tell anybody that this is poison. So when the government came in and said, hey, is C8, is it bad for you? Is it poisonous? They said, not at all. In fact, it's pretty safe for everything. And so the government said, all right, do whatever you want with it. So they put it everywhere. And when they had to get rid of Teflon, right, when they had to get rid of it, they would just pour it in water, like in lakes or in rivers. And so I know some of you are like, oh my goodness. Now here's what's even crazier. Year after year after year, these companies did their own tests, and they kept seeing, actually, this causes liver cancer, and this causes birth defects for babies. This causes like kidney failure. This causes these kinds of things, and they kept all of their things a secret. They kept all of the notes about the poison to themselves. And they knew it was there, but they didn't do anything about it. And this went on through the 50s and the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. And in the early 2000s, there was somebody who decided to sue one of the companies because he noticed that his cows were sick after their water supply had been tainted by Teflon, and he found that his daughters were getting sick drinking from their well. And it started to affect their family's teeth, and so there came to be something called Teflon teeth, which looks like this. Yeah, it's pretty gross. Now here's the deal. So they took it to court, and the companies battled it in the 2000s and into the 2010s. And I think they just finished one of the earliest cases in 2015 and then in 2017. Now think about this. How many of you are mad at hearing that? You're just mad that they had that. Now here's what's crazy. Because most of us are mad because we think like, that's messed up what you did to other people. You poisoned water for other people and you hurt other people. But poison is a little sneakier than that. And this is what makes this story, I think, so much more sinister, is that because of the way that Teflon doesn't fade or fall apart or anything like that, it's estimated that 99.7% of Americans have it in their blood right now. Which means that every single one of us has a little bit of C8 inside of us. Because it got passed down from somebody's pan into their body, which they passed down through birth into somebody else's body because it doesn't fall apart. And now here's the deal. Isn't that crazy? And most of us, how many of you are more upset now that you know? Yeah, there you go. All right. I know a lawyer. Okay. All right. Now here's the deal. Most of us are really mad and really upset about that. And you should be, because somebody knew that there was poison and they let it go. Somebody knew that there was poison and they just left it alone. And they didn't do anything about it. They let it hurt people. They let it harm people. They let it go on for years and years and years. And you have a right to be upset. But here's the big question. When it comes to sin, do you realize that sin is a poison? Do you know that sin is actually a much more dangerous poison than C8? Did you know that sin actually leads to more sin? And sin creates a cycle or a pattern or a loop. And sin gives birth to more sin, which gives birth to more sin, which hurts more people and more people and more people. I give you an example. You know, I can think about these times where I've seen like one person say something really angry to another person, right? They get in their flesh and they go, you know what, I hate you. And they say something really mean. Now that's a sinful thing there. And then the other person reacting to that sin goes, well, I hate you, right? So sin created sin. But then they both go their separate ways and they go to other people and they start to gossip. I hate that person. They're stupid. Sin gave birth to sin, gave birth to sin. And then those people start to get mad at each other. And then to get more people on their side, they start lying about the thing that they started. And so then it's sin giving birth to sin, giving birth to sin. Sin is like Pac-Man. It can never get full. Sin is a monster that never is satisfied. It just eats and eats and eats, and it's a poison because it corrupts and it destroys. In the Bible, it tells us that when we see sin, we need to deal with it. But specifically, when we see sin, not just everywhere, because I'll be honest, that would be impossible. And to some extent, we see sin all over I see sin on the internet all the time. I see sin in TV shows and movies, and it's in songs. And there's sin in the school you go to, and there's sin all over the place, right? And so it would be really impossible and also not very helpful to every time that you see sin everywhere that you try to shut it down. But the Bible does say that if you see sin in somebody else who's a believer of Jesus, and you know them, you don't want to leave poison. How many of you, if you were at the school lunch and they were bringing the cleaning cart around, and the cleaning guy puts like the bleach on the table, and your friend's not paying attention, and he reaches for the bleach instead of his cup and starts it. How many of you would just be like, let's see what happens? Y'all are messed up, all right? No. Right, if we saw our friends about to drink poison, you got to be like, hey, stop, no. And the Bible says this. The Bible says this in 1 Corinthians 5, verse 12. It isn't my responsibility to judge outsiders, but it is your responsibility to judge those inside the church who are sinning. That might feel like a harsh phrase. So let me tell you what was happening here. There was a church in Corinth, and about 2,000 years ago, they were really confused on how to be good Christians when other Christians were in sin. And they thought to themselves, okay, well, if Jesus forgave me of my sins, and he accepts me, even though I'm not perfect, then if I see another Christian sinning, I guess I should leave them alone. And I guess it would be really kind and good and like Jesus to just leave them alone. And that's what the church thought. And they thought they were being very Jesus-like. They thought to themselves, hey, we're being very Jesus-like. But there was this sin in this church that Paul goes, guys, oh, no. This is poison. This is bad. This is sin. No. We don't leave it because it's destructive. It hurts people. It will destroy them. It will destroy and eat more and more and more. No. We don't leave it. What we have to do is deal with the sin. See, Paul points out that actually it's more Jesus-like to help a brother or sister in Jesus get sin out of their lives than it is to leave sin in there. Because if it's poison and you know it's poison, you know it's going to hurt them. I don't let my kids ride their bikes straight out into the road when cars are coming. You know why? Because I know that that's going to hurt them. And I don't go, hey, I just want to respect their opinion, you know? Just let it, they want to ride their bikes in the road right now. They don't see the car, but it's going to be, no! No! If you see somebody who says, hey, I follow Jesus, and they've got sin, poison living inside of them, there's something that we have to do about it. When you see sin, you deal with it. And here's why. Because God has a passion to set you free from your sin. The Bible says, who the Son, who Jesus sets free, is free indeed. That there is a desire of God to free you from the bondage. I mean, sin is like, sin is a trap. It holds you against your will. Sin is a poison. It eats at your very being. Sin is a disease. It spreads to everything around you. And if we really love other people, and if we really love the people of God, it's so good when we have the courage and the bravery to help them.